Hi guys, so today we have the second interview of this channel, and I thought that I could bring Andy. And he's a good friend of mine who is also he's a colleague of mine. He's also a language teacher. He teaches English, but as you'll see, he's a polyglot. He's bilingual, like he speaks he speaks two languages as native languages. So yeah, Andy, introduce yourself a little.
Hi everyone, my name's Andy and I teach medical English to medical professionals, mostly Spanish people who want to speak English in the medical field.
And what kind of purposes do your students usually have? They want to travel, they want to go abroad, or they just want to work here, but like in private hospitals? What is their situation?
That's quite of an interesting question, actually. I've got a variety of, let's say, professionals that have different ideas. Some people decide to stay in Spain. As you know, Spain is full of tourists. So it's very likely to find a tourist that doesn't speak Spanish that comes to seek attention. Yeah. Some other people prefer to move to other countries, such as the United Arab Emirates, Ireland, the US, to seek better job opportunities.
And how long have you been, well, I know you've been teaching languages your whole life, but how long have you been working with this particular niche, let's say?
Yes, with this particular niche, I'd say it's been a year.
Cool.
Roughly.
Cool. Okay. So for those of you who don't know this, well, any of you know this, Andy is both from England and Italy, right? Your mom is from southern England and your dad is northern Italian. So he got the worst of both countries. But I was kidding. So, tell us a little about because, a lot of people and a lot of my students, they've also grown up in bilingual environment. So, I have a lot of people whose family is Puerto Rican, but they were raised in the US as an example, but they don't reach that high level of proficiency in both languages. Usually their Spanish is lacking of either vocabulary, grammar, or both. But in your case, you're perfectly bilingual in these two languages. So tell us a little about how did your parents, especially, manage to have a perfectly bilingual kid?
Well, I'd say that up to the 3 years of age, my mom would speak strictly English with me and my dad Italian. And when they would interact, my mom would speak English to my dad and Italian to my dad. My dad would speak Italian to my mom. They could understand each other because they could understand both languages, but they would keep the same code. That is to say, my mom would be the English word for me and my dad the Italian. So it would never confuse.
And how was it in terms of school? Did you go to school? Because I know that, okay, first of all, where were you raised? Were you raised in the UK, in Italy, in both
countries? This played a crucial role, actually, because I could live both the culture and the language of both countries. Because it's not only about, I'd say it's not only about the language you speak, it's also about the culture that the language conveys. Yeah. Yeah,
and the culture you identify yourself with.
Yeah.
Yeah. And how was school? Did you go to English school in England and Italian school in Italy, or did you do this thing of going to British school in Italy? How was it?
Right. In England, I would go to a standard English school, whereas in Italy, I would go to a bilingual school. It's like the British school in Italy. So I would keep both languages properly spoken.
And when did you discover that you actually liked languages? Because, as a kid, you just speak both languages, is all right. But when did you discover that you actually liked them, that you wanted to consecrate your life to them, as dramatic as it sounds?
Yes, that's quite funny. Actually, I wanted to become a lawyer, right? But I ended up teaching.
Them now, so yeah, it makes sense.
Well, it's about communication, I think. It's still about communication because good lawyers have very good communication skills. But in my case, I'd say that it was a teacher who played a crucial role in my life. And like you said, consecrated my life to languages. She was very passionate. She used new, innovative methods to teach. I saw myself in her.
What did she teach you?
She would teach Italian literature.
Mm.
I was like, wow, amused at the way she would use metaphors and parallelisms to communicate certain ideas, and was like, oh my goodness, this is genius. She really loved her job. You know what I mean?
Mm.
And this was very inspirational. Very inspirational.
So from that point, you decided to go to college, and you decided to do a double major, if I'm not mistaken, or was it just okay? So it was a double major. Yeah, you explain it.
Yes, I decided to study philology, which is basically ancient literatures, the development of the language, and I studied.
This is what I studied, by the way. For those of you watching that, that's what I studied, but with Hispanic literature and Spanish language.
Yeah.
Yeah. You did it for what languages? You did philology for?
That was for German and English.
Mm. And did you like the college experience? Because some people, go enter the university degree thinking that it's something, and that ends up not being. And that happens a lot with especially foreign philologists, right? People, yeah.
Quite honestly and frankly, I was not very impressed by my experience at university. I'd say it was rather bland. Yeah. Maybe it was because my Italian teacher, as I told you, was very dynamic and energetic, and I didn't see this in university classes. Still, I could make the most out of that experience and learn an awful lot of things, but it was just because I did it, not because of the university system, because that was not quite as I had expected it to be, so to speak. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that happens to us, like to people that we like to learn. But the thing is that didn't happen to me, because I went to university knowing that it was on me. Like I was responsible for my own education at the end of the day. Going to either high school, college, whatever it is, it's a guidance, it's a map. It's you the one who has to begin walking. And you also have to understand that you're in a room with other 50 people. Yeah. So, you can't accommodate everybody. So I think we all should be responsible of our own learning, right? Okay, so being at the university, you learned German?
Pardon, say that again?
When you were at college, you learned German, right?
Yeah, German, yes.
Do you know any German at all before getting into uni?
Yes, I had started it at high school. And I just needed to deepen the knowledge, so to speak. Yeah.
But now your level of German is proficient.
Now I have a C2, yes.
Yeah. It's a proficient level because you also did the PhD, if I'm not mistaken.
This is correct. In Vienna.
Yeah, you did the PhD of German literature.
Yeah.
Cool. And so when did the teaching began in all of these?
That was after my master's degree. Yeah. I started working as a substitute teacher in public schools. I would complement it with after-school classes, private classes, so to speak. It was before COVID, so I would normally... Yeah.
Excuse me for interrupting you. That was in Italy.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, that's correct. And this used to be before COVID, so there would be normally face-to-face. But after COVID, I started working online, which is, well, the reason why I'm here today as well. And this is what I do now.
Cool. Yeah. And okay, tell us a little about your story with Spanish, how you ended up living in Spain, having a very good Spanish. But actually, it took me a couple of minutes to see that you were foreign, first time we met. So tell us a little your story with Spanish. Why did you fall in love with the language, the culture, the everything, up to the point that, again, now it's very difficult to tell that Andy's a foreigner, especially for other foreigners. I'm sure that if I show like a dialogue or something about you to other students of mine, they're gonna think you're native. So how did you get to that proficient level of Spanish?
Right, that's quite a curious story. It all began in 2022, so basically almost 3 years ago. God, how time flies. Right. I had studied Spanish at high school, very basic level. That was, I think, A2 or something like that. So I hadn't picked it up for a while. When I decided to move to Spain after I had broken up with my ex-partner, and I wanted to enjoy the summer of my life in Valencia. Not only did I have the time of my life, but I also fell in love with the city and with someone else. So I decided to stay and to start a new life in Valencia, in sunny Valencia, Spain. Right. When I arrived here, it was, like I said, 3 years ago, I could barely order drinks, speak to people, act them out, and stuff like that. But the more I stayed here, the more I wanted to blend in with the Spaniards. So I tried to imitate them. I tried to speak like they did. One of the most difficult expressions for me to learn was, I don't know if I can say swear words, but I'm not doing it anyways. It was no te jode. Because in Spanish, it has so many different meanings, and I could not use it naturally until a point in which I understood, actually, this is where you should use it, and this is where you shouldn't. So I think that my best bet was to start speaking a language here with native speakers. This would help me the most achieve a decent level of Spanish.
Yeah, but I mean, like, a lot of people spend here in this country quite a few years, and they're still not capable at all to speak. You know, it always comes to my mind, Jose Mourinho. Most of my audience is from the United States, but Jose Mourinho is a very, very popular, successful soccer coach. He spent half of his life in England. His English is terrible till this day. He's Portuguese, and his English is terrible. I mean, you can understand him. He's fluent, but he has that big Portuguese accent, right? So Andy would be in the other side of the spectrum. Andy really, absorbs the culture and talks the language, and as he said, he bends in. Is that how you say that?
Yeah, blending. Yes.
Blend or bend?
Blend.
Blend. Yeah, sorry. Blend. He really blends in. So going to that part, you're a polyglot. You speak Italian, English as native languages. You speak German and Spanish at a high proficient level. How do you, because again, it's not that you speak these foreign languages, that I mean, both German and Spanish are foreign languages in which you speak fluently, etc. You have a very good accent. How did you get to this accent? Do you think that it's just natural? Do you think that people are limited? That, like, do you think that it depends on everybody's skills and everybody's talents? Or do you think that it can be trained?
This is one of the most beautiful questions I always get asked. I think that the best way to explain it is take a Spanish, take an English, take a Japanese, take an Indian, and I don't know, take a South American, like a Mexican, so to speak. Yeah.
It's in North America, but yeah, okay, I get it.
Cut them like this. Basically, that the same mouth, the same tongue, the same teeth, the same palate, everything is the same. Okay, vocal cords, everything. So how come we can make sounds that are different in other languages and we're not able to imitate them? This is for mainly two reasons, in my opinion. First reason is because we don't hear properly.
How do you say sordera fonológica in English?
I would say that's a phonological deafness. Okay. Yeah, but I wouldn't even translate it. It's basically this inability to really get the sound across and to recreate the exact same sound, which I understand. I mean, my native languages are English and Italian. So if I heard a sound for the first time, I would try to compare it to the array of sounds that I know. This is the most natural and most convenient thing to do, yeah? But not necessarily is the sound included in my language system. What do you think?
I think it depends on, because as you know, in linguistics we distinguish between phonemes and sound. Meaning, okay, for those of you who, okay, let's take the N, right? The N in English, Italian, Spanish, it only has the sound N and the letter N, right? But it's very different to saying, help me out, Andy, or to say orange. Orange is a palatal sound. I'm using my teeth, orange, right? So what happens is that the N, which is a phoneme, because we don't really distinguish between orange and Andy, has multiple sounds, right? And here's the problem. A lot of times, for us, it's an allophone. Allophone means, again, the different sounds belonging to the same phoneme. Again, orange, and Andy. Those are two different sounds. Okay, two different sounds belonging to the same phoneme. Problem here is that sometimes what for me, for a language, is a phoneme are two different phonemes. In another language, those are two different sounds belonging to the same phoneme. Let's take East Asian languages as an example. The way we imitate them is not pronouncing the R, right? Especially, well, I don't know in English, but especially in Spain, if we want to imitate a Chinese speaker, we're just going to say everything with the L instead of with the R, right? So instead of saying gracias, we're going to say gracias, right? Or instead of saying, where is the bathroom? ¿Dónde está el baño? No, that's not a good example. I don't know.
Junto, separado.
Junto, separado, right? That's how we imitate Chinese speakers. But the truth is that that's not really the truth. What happens in these countries is that for them, the and the le, it's the same sound. It just depends on when you pronounce them. So, for example, they don't have the R at the end of the sentence. That's why a Chinese person is never going to say cantar, to sing. They're never going to say cantar. They're going to say cantal, just like Puerto Ricans do, for example. But the other way around, a Korean person is never going to say hola. It's going to say ora. And maybe that was a very long explanation, but basically we do have we have sounds and we have phonemes. So you have to train yourself to begin hearing sounds and not phonemes. Another example is where I live, for us, the h sound and the he sound is the same. So when you speak English, or the watch and wash, for me, when I began learning English, were the same, watch and wash. Exactly the same. So you have to learn that those two sounds that you pronounce every single day of your life in that language are actually different, are actually like the P and the B, which, by the way, in Arabic, for example, they are the same phoneme, P and B. So I think it's not just a matter of listening. I think it's a matter of reading.
Yes.
More than listening, because when you read, and you always put the same example, if an American person reads the word grandma, abuela, they're never going to read abuela. They're going to read abuela, right? Abuela, right? And it's like, oh, they don't have that sound in English. Well, you say root. You say root, you can say abuela, right? More or less. I know it's not exactly the same sound, but you know what I mean. Like it's that same thing of putting the lips together without really putting them together.
Weather.
Yeah, abuela. Or the same goes for dedo. Most of my students say dedo. It's dedo. And they do use these sounds in English. They say they, them, right? So you just have to rematch all the sounds with the words, with the letters. So I think it's a rematching game first, and then to hear what you say. So I think having a good accent in a foreign language is more about knowing what you pronounce in your own, not just language, in your own dialect, in your own accent, to then being able to hear those same sounds in a foreign language. We are capable, in our own language, we produce 90% of sound that a human can produce. So
yeah.
It was a very long answer.
I mean, it's very clear.
The thing is that sometimes what I find is that, and we were talking about this at the beginning before I'm recording this, a lot of students are not that interested in improving their accent, which is fine, because it's true that if people can understand you, if you're intelligible, that's okay. But the thing is that then you have another group of students who really, really want to improve their accent, and reading is not enough, right? So how do you correct these things, for example? Or how do you, because a lot of people say, well, it's an intonation thing. Well, yes and no, because again, if I say dedo, even if I tell the students, hey, don't say dedo, they say dedo, dedo. They're going to say dedo. So, it's not that. So how do you correct pronunciation exactly? What do you do? And I'm not talking about the typical thing of saying stop instead of stop. I'm talking about like very deep pronunciation mistakes.
Right. Let me get this straight. To me, since English is one of the most widely spoken languages, once you get intelligibility, you've done half of the job. The problem that goes with intelligibility is that sometimes pronunciation is essential. I'm going to give you a very stupid example. Let's say the beautiful word beach. I'm going to the beach. Yeah. What about I'm going to the beach?
Yeah,
it's different sounds, okay? Many Spanish speakers do not get this right. Yeah, so the E and the I sound. Or, for example, sheep, ship. This is another example. Feel. Yes, exactly. So this is the entire point of it. Pronunciation needs to provide intelligibility. So the most important thing for me is let's get the most important things right, so you don't create misunderstandings. Once this is done, if you really want to dig into the pronunciation matters and make your accent more neutral, more perfect, well, we can do that, but this is about shadowing, imitation, and many, many other techniques that can help you achieve the level. But the most important thing for me, like I said, is first, let's get the most important sounds right so that there is no misunderstanding. And then we can improve all of the rest. Another example to say is, for example, the S sound, okay? Spanish people from, well, Spain, so not from South America.
Center north of Spain.
Yes.
Like the S, right?
Yes, exactly.
In the south of Spain, we have the same as in America, yeah.
Yeah. In northern Spain, they say S with a very, like, they touch the roof.
I don't know how to say that. I mean, it's very sibilant. It's estamos.
Exactly. This is wheezing. They touch the alveolar ridge up behind the front teeth. They just do this sound. Yeah. First of all, it's Z in English. And this is similar to, like you said, South America and southern Spain. But the second problem is they don't distinguish the Z sound. For example, zoo. I go to the zoo. And they say I go to the zoo. This is not very critical for me. It's something we can correct forward. Doesn't need to be corrected straight away. But this is something that really makes me think, okay, you're Spanish. Does it make sense?
Yeah, and also, well, not here, but I've seen a lot of central northern Spaniards that have a very hard time pronouncing the sh sound, which for me, it's the most natural thing to do. I say that all the time. Musho, muchacho, shashi, shushi, shu. But for them, it's very, so they say a sh, right? So sometimes instead of saying, let me think, ashes, Anita, ashes, they say ashes, which
Ashes. Yeah.
Which is unintelligible. It's like, what?
Well, yeah. I shall go instead of I shall go.
I shall go, or I should go instead of I should go, or what's even worse, I should go. It's like, don't great deal. Okay. So how do you, for example, how would you teach somebody from the north of Spain to pronounce the sh sound?
Well, it depends if they're into linguistics or not. If they are into linguistics, what I do, I show them the mouth. I show the position of the tongue, and I correct the position of the tongue. Sometimes I also use devices, such as, for example, a simple pencil can become a useful device when it comes to noticing where your tongue goes in your mouth. Yeah. Other techniques I use are similarities with your language. So if your first language is Spanish, I will find some varieties. For example, I normally talk about South American Spanish or Southern Spanish. Yeah? Southern Spain Spanish. And we talk about it and we see similarities. They can imitate accents from their own language.
In the Caribbean, in the South, we say "sh" all the time.
Exactly.
Not Argentinians that they say "sh" instead of "yo" and all this kind of thing.
Yeah, because every Spaniard in every single town is going to say things like "que vas a pisar." They know how to say it because it's cultural heritage of Spain. So it's just, okay, the "should" sound is exactly the same as in that sentence we say all the time. And then they just get it right, miraculously.
Cool. And to finish up, I wanted to first of all ask you some questions regarding language education and how idealistic it is. A lot of times, well, education that's pedagogy. How do you say pedagogy in English? Pedagogy. How do you say pedagogy in English?
You would just say the same thing, pedagogy.
Pedagogy. Okay. So pedagogy tends to be very idealistic. So a problem that I find a lot is that, well, I consume a lot of I read a lot of articles, papers, a lot of podcasts about language education and how languages should be taught. And the problem that I find the most is that they only talk to people that are keen on languages, people that are very motivated or very needed to learn, or people that are intelligent to learn. And they forget about people that for them it's very hard to learn. So for example, I have a lot of students who struggle a lot with conjugations, right? It takes them a minute. When I say a minute, I mean a couple of months to get the present tense conjugation right, to really naturalize it, right? And it doesn't matter how many texts and videos and exercises we do, they still struggle with that. It's difficult to naturalize that and to speak it naturally. And then you also find this kind of crazy ideas that are good but not at the same time. That they say, well, if you want to learn a language, find a couple of topics you really love, like football, food, travels, and repeat them so that you create high frequency vocabulary and so that you're going to be motivated to learn. Well, guess what? I would get tired of doing it, right? So question is, how would you, I know it's a very general question, but how would you approach language learning for someone who doesn't really like languages, but they have to because of work, and for people that it's very difficult for them to stay motivated, but they want to do it? Like, for example, I go to the gym every day, but that doesn't mean that I go to the gym with a smile in my face. Oh yeah, get to work out, right?
Right. I'm going to answer with a very curious analogy. Even if I am in the condition of having very little time due to my full-time job and a lot of commitments I have, there is only one thing I would never delegate. Never, which is house chores. I love cleaning my house.
Okay.
I could.
Andy, please come to my house, do the cleaning for me.
No, but I mean it. I mean, I could get a cleaning lady or man, no problem. I could do it, but I'm not doing it for a simple reason. This is my me time in which I speak out loud. No one is listening because it's only me at home, and I'm speaking Spanish, for example. Well, now I'm actually learning Valencian, which is the Catalan variety of the Valencian community. Right? So I'm speaking Valencian. It's my Valencian time. Everything I do, I describe, because what I think is everything that is around us, that surrounds us, is our word. And we should speak a language to use it in our word, to describe the word we have around. If I am not a lawyer, why on earth should I learn terminology regarding legal matters if I don't use it? But, for example, a broom is something I use to clean, or a vacuum cleaner. And I need to know this word because this is part of my environment, part of what I have around. So what I suggest my students is exactly the same thing. The most important thing you need to do is to learn the things that surround you. that you have a contact on a daily basis. This is the fastest and most rewarding in terms of achieving a result technique.
I mean, I'm partially, I partially agree with you, because yes, it's true. Like, you have to talk about things that surround you and things that happen in your life, but personally not. For example, I don't know how to say cleaning stuff in English, and I consider myself to be proficient in English. It's just that I never clean in English. Same goes for cooking. I don't know how to say sartén in English, but because I never cook in English. But that doesn't mean that I don't speak English, right? It's just that I never cared about cooking in English, right? Or it wasn't until recently that I learned the word shoelaces. Because again, I wanted to know the word shoe. Shoelace was like a very specific word that I wasn't that interested in. So you know what I mean, right? Like, I agree with you, but my take on vocabulary is more general. That's something that I always do. Like, when people ask me, hey, do you use vocabulary lists and all these things? I don't. I'm not saying that they're wrong. It's just that I personally don't. I just watch a lot of videos, listen to a lot of podcasts. I talk to people. I read books. I watch movies. I get exposure to the language, but I never go into something particular. But again, that's how I like to do it. I'm not saying that it's wrong. That what other people do is just what I like to do. And actually, whenever I've been following language classes, they're always like, do this and do that. And I'm like, no, I'm just gonna watch a YouTube video. I'm just gonna. But again, because I perceive language learning as, imagine that you're in a beach. Imagine the waves of that beach. They end up leaving some sediment.
I would say some sand.
Yeah, sand. But and eventually they create a rock.
All right, they are accumulating. Yes.
It's just that you get one wave, then another wave. So that's language learning. You have to get a lot of waves, and eventually you'll get to fluency. You'll form the rock. But vocabulary, especially, something that I get asked all the time is, what do I do to not forget words? I'm like, well, if you learn a language and you say that you forget words, it's like if you go to the gym and then you say that you have muscle soreness. What do you do about muscle soreness? Nothing. So what do you do if you forget words? Nothing. You just have to learn it again and learn it again, and eventually it will stick, right? So to finish up, I wanted to do a little demonstration on how can you teach languages not how can you teach languages, how you can teach pronunciation in a language. So we're going to do a little game. Do you have Google Docs, Word, whatever, something to write?
Yes.
Can you write a sentence in Italian, a sentence that you think that may be suitable for this case?
Italian.
In Italian.
All right.
I'm going to read it, and we're going to do a little game to see if I can improve my Italian level in 2 minutes. And by the way, I don't know any word of Italian. I mean, I know some words, but like I've never learned Italian in a formal way, or in an informal way. I've never learned Italian, but I know a couple of words because it's a very similar language to Spanish.
Right. We're gonna try with this one.
Yeah, but put a sentence, not a word, like a whole sentence.
Yeah. That's what I did. Tell me when you see it.
Hold on. Non ho intenzione di comprare questo cappello.
Almost perfect. Very good.
Okay. Hold on. Non ho intenzione di comprare questo cappello.
That was good. The
So
double.
how is it really?
There was non ho intenzione di comprare questo cappello.
But for example, what should I do to open my mouth more? Sound more native, basically. What should I do to open my mouth more and to nasalize the sound more in this case?
For example, you have a nasal sound here. Yeah?
Yep.
Comprare. So what you would have to do here would be to imagine the sound needs to shift into your nose, just like
Comprare.
Yes.
Non ho intenzione di comprare questo cappello.
Okay, another example is here. Yeah? Right? So in this case, it's not non ho It's
Ah,
no ho intenzione. So you just make a ligation there, yeah?
ok. Non ho intenzione di comprare questo capello.
Perfect.
Non ho intenzione di comprare questo capello. Okay, I thought it was going to be harder.
Right.
Okay.
And you just have a look at this word here.
Capello?
Yeah.
What's the same word, by the way?
Capello is the hat.
So I have the intention of buying this hat.
Very good.
Okay. Oh, yeah. I thought it was wig. Okay, wig.
Let's break it down. Cap.
Cap.
Pel.
Pel.
It's a lower sound. It's not e. It's
Okay. It's like in Córdoba, right? Like
very good.
Capello. Capello.
Cappello.
Capello.
Two
Non ho
people.
intenzione di comprare questo capello.
Okay. Capello. This is capello. This is hair. Cappello. You have to.
Capello.
Okay. Good. Imagine you pronounce the P sound and you count 1. Cappello.
Capello. Yeah, because it goes up and down, right? Non ho intenzione di comprare. Non ho intenzione di comprare questo capello.
You
Non ho
ready?
intenzione di comprare questo capello. Okay.
Very
Okay.
good.
Italian opens a lot. Okay. And what about English? Can you put an English sentence and I tried to read it with British English, which, by the way, was the original version of English that I learned.
Right.
And talking with foreigners online and everything screwed up. But yeah, in English, my British English was my first one to go. I'd rather go to the amusement park tonight.
Good. Can you pronounce the first bit again?
I'd rather go to the amusement park. No, it's amusement. Okay, hold on. I'd rather go to the amusement park tonight.
Okay. This one, rather, this is very American. The British person would say rather. So it's from the back.
Rather. Yeah, the central R, right? Rather. Okay. I'd rather go to the amusement park tonight.
Beautiful.
I'd rather go to the rather. Rather. I'd rather go to the amusement. I'd rather go to the amusement park tonight.
Park. Again, park. It's not park. It's park.
If I say park, I sound Australian, right? Okay. I'd rather go to the amusement park tonight.
Oh, that's very good.
I'd rather go to the amusement park tonight. I tend to do glotal T's. It's just easier.
Tonight, yeah.
Okay, tonight. Cool. So thank you very again. Stop sharing your screen now.
Thank you very much. Yes.
Thank you very much for coming to the show. Thank you very much for coming to the interview, Andy. I hope this wasn't really boring. When I film these kind of things, I always feel like, oh, people are not gonna like this, blah blah blah. But I hope everything was okay. Thank you very much for coming. And do you have anything to say to the audience?
No, well, thank you very much, Julia. First of all, it's been a pleasure to be, speaking with you today. And yeah, the only thing I want to say to the audience is, I know sometimes it's difficult, not only as a teacher, but also as a student, because I've studied many languages as a foreign language. Sometimes it's frustrating, sometimes it's difficult, but when things seem difficult, they can turn out for the better if you keep working on them.
Languages take time. It's something people get to know. Time, effort, and tears and sweat and blood. Okay, I'm gonna stop. So again, thank you very much, Andy.
Thank you.
And I'll have you soon because I think I'll call you to do another one of these.
That would be lovely. Thank you.
Vale, para de grabar.
Stop recording. Stop.